Iya, Bu.
Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT, atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel.
Tumbuhnya Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, dan Bekasi sebagai wilayah aglomerasi menciptakan permasalahan yang kompleks dalam terminologi demografi. Tidak hanya ketersediaan lahan yang belum mampu mengimbangi jumlah kaum urban di Jakarta sebagai kota inti, namun juga memicu permasalahan lain yang pelik di bidang sosial, ekonomi, dan tentunya transportasi. Data mencatat, jumlah kendaraan pribadi lebih mendominasi dibandingkan penyediaan angkutan massalnya. 75%-nya dikuasai sepeda motor, 23% lainnya kendaraan roda 4, dan 2% sisanya adalah angkutan umum. Di sisi lain, belum primanya layanan angkutan umum, kurangnya transportasi publik, buruknya kualitas infrastruktur, dan tidak terintegrasinya transportasi massal antar wilayah menghadirkan permasalahan baru bagi perkembangan Jabodetabek. Menjawab tantangan tersebut, BPTJ berupaya meningkatkan layanan, konektivitas dan mobilitas transportasi dengan menyusun Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek yang telah disahkan melalui Peraturan Presiden Nomor 58 Tahun 2018. Dengan visi mewujudkan pembangunan, pengembangan, dan pengoperasian transportasi yang terintegrasi di Jabodetabek, diharapkan dapat meningkatkan layanan transportasi yang tertib, lancar, efektif, efisien, aman, selamat, nyaman, dan terjangkau tanpa dibatasi oleh wilayah administratif. Selaras dengan hal tersebut, penyelenggaraan dan pengelolaan transportasi Jabodetabek dicapai melalui pembangunan dan pengembangan sistem jaringan prasarana dan jaringan layanan baik intra maupun antar moda, pembangunan dan pengembangan transportasi perkotaan antar wilayah, pengoperasian transportasi perkotaan, dan pengintegrasian pembiayaan. Dengan visi dan misi tersebut, diharapkan penyelenggaraan transportasi perkotaan mampu menggerakkan orang untuk menggunakan angkutan umum, mengurangi waktu tempuh perjalanan menggunakan public transport pada saat peak hour, meningkatkan cakupan layanan angkutan perkotaan, meningkatkan ketersediaan akses pejalan kaki menuju angkutan umum, memperluas layanan feeder yang terintegrasi dengan simpul utama, meningkatkan fasilitas park and ride, serta mempermudah perpindahan antar moda. Sebagai penopang kebijakan pembangunan transportasi di Jabodetabek, rencana induk ini berlandaskan pada peningkatan keselamatan dan keamanan, pengembangan jaringan prasarana, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan berbasis jalan dan rel, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang terintegrasi, peningkatan kinerja lalu lintas, pengembangan sistem pendanaan, pengembangan keterpaduan transportasi perkotaan dan tata ruang, serta pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang ramah lingkungan. Implementasi rancangan peraturan ini akan dilakukan secara bertahap, mulai dari tahun 2018 sampai dengan 2029, sebagai landasan bagi pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah dalam merencanakan, mengelola, dan mengembangkan transportasi yang terintegrasi di wilayah Jabodetabek. Diharapkan melalui Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan dapat selaras dan sejalan antar satu wilayah dengan wilayah lainnya, serta efektif dan efisien sehingga pada akhirnya dapat ikut bersama mendukung pembangunan nasional. Tumbuhnya Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, dan Bekasi sebagai wilayah aglomerasi menciptakan permasalahan yang kompleks dalam terminologi demografi. Tidak hanya ketersediaan lahan yang belum mampu mengimbangi jumlah kaum urban di Jakarta sebagai kota.
Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT, atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel. Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel. Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel.
Tumbuhnya Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, dan Bekasi sebagai wilayah aglomerasi menciptakan permasalahan yang kompleks dalam terminologi demografi. Tidak hanya ketersediaan lahan yang belum mampu mengimbangi jumlah kaum urban di Jakarta sebagai kota inti, namun juga memicu permasalahan lain yang pelik di bidang sosial, ekonomi, dan tentunya transportasi. Data mencatat, jumlah kendaraan pribadi lebih mendominasi dibandingkan penyediaan angkutan massalnya. 75%-nya dikuasai sepeda motor, 23% lainnya kendaraan roda 4, dan 2% sisanya adalah angkutan umum. Di sisi lain, belum primanya layanan angkutan umum, kurangnya transportasi publik, buruknya kualitas infrastruktur, dan tidak terintegrasinya transportasi massal antar wilayah menghadirkan permasalahan baru bagi perkembangan Jabodetabek. Menjawab tantangan tersebut, BPTJ berupaya meningkatkan layanan, konektivitas dan mobilitas transportasi dengan menyusun Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek yang telah disahkan melalui Peraturan Presiden Nomor 58 Tahun 2018. Dengan visi mewujudkan pembangunan, pengembangan, dan pengoperasian transportasi yang terintegrasi di Jabodetabek, diharapkan dapat meningkatkan layanan transportasi yang tertib, lancar, efektif, efisien, aman, selamat, nyaman, dan terjangkau tanpa dibatasi oleh wilayah administratif. Selaras dengan hal tersebut, Penyelenggaraan dan pengelolaan transportasi Jabodetabek dicapai melalui pembangunan dan pengembangan sistem jaringan prasarana dan jaringan layanan baik intra maupun antar moda. Pembangunan dan pengembangan transportasi perkotaan antar wilayah, pengoperasian transportasi perkotaan, dan pengintegrasian pembiayaan. Dengan visi dan misi tersebut, diharapkan penyelenggaraan transportasi perkotaan mampu menggerakkan orang untuk menggunakan angkutan umum, mengurangi waktu tempuh perjalanan menggunakan public transport pada saat peak hour, meningkatkan cakupan layanan angkutan perkotaan, meningkatkan ketersediaan akses pejalan kaki menuju angkutan umum, memperluas layanan feeder yang terintegrasi dengan simpul utama, meningkatkan fasilitas park and ride, serta mempermudah perpindahan antar moda. Sebagai penopang kebijakan pembangunan transportasi di Jabodetabek, rencana induk ini berlandaskan pada peningkatan keselamatan dan keamanan, pengembangan jaringan prasarana, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan berbasis jalan dan rel, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang terintegrasi, peningkatan kinerja lalu lintas, pengembangan sistem pendanaan, pengembangan keterpaduan transportasi perkotaan dan tata ruang, serta pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang ramah lingkungan. Implementasi rancangan peraturan ini akan dilakukan secara bertahap, mulai dari tahun 2018 sampai dengan 2029, sebagai landasan bagi pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah dalam merencanakan, mengelola, dan mengembangkan transportasi yang terintegrasi di wilayah Jabodetabek. Diharapkan melalui Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan dapat selaras dan sejalan antar satu wilayah dengan wilayah lainnya, serta efektif dan efisien sehingga pada akhirnya dapat ikut bersama mendukung pembangunan nasional.
Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel. Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel.
Tumbuhnya Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, dan Bekasi sebagai wilayah aglomerasi menciptakan permasalahan yang kompleks dalam terminologi demografi. Tidak hanya ketersediaan lahan yang belum mampu mengimbangi jumlah kaum urban di Jakarta sebagai kota inti, namun juga memicu permasalahan lain yang pelik di bidang sosial, ekonomi, dan tentunya transportasi. Data mencatat, jumlah kendaraan pribadi lebih mendominasi dibandingkan penyediaan angkutan massalnya. 75%-nya dikuasai sepeda motor, 23% lainnya kendaraan roda 4, dan 2% sisanya adalah angkutan umum. Di sisi lain, belum primanya layanan angkutan umum, kurangnya transportasi publik, buruknya kualitas infrastruktur, dan tidak terintegrasinya transportasi massal antar wilayah menghadirkan permasalahan baru bagi perkembangan Jabodetabek. Menjawab tantangan tersebut, BPTJ berupaya meningkatkan layanan, konektivitas dan mobilitas transportasi dengan menyusun Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek yang telah disahkan melalui Peraturan Presiden Nomor 58 Tahun 2018. Dengan visi mewujudkan pembangunan, pengembangan, dan pengoperasian transportasi yang terintegrasi di Jabodetabek, diharapkan dapat meningkatkan layanan transportasi yang tertib, lancar, efektif, efisien, aman, selamat, nyaman, dan terjangkau tanpa dibatasi oleh wilayah administratif. Selaras dengan hal tersebut, penyelenggaraan dan pengelolaan transportasi Jabodetabek dicapai melalui pembangunan dan pengembangan sistem jaringan prasarana dan jaringan layanan baik intra maupun antar moda, pembangunan dan pengembangan transportasi perkotaan antar wilayah, pengoperasian transportasi perkotaan, dan pengintegrasian pembiayaan. Dengan visi dan misi tersebut, diharapkan penyelenggaraan transportasi perkotaan mampu menggerakkan orang untuk menggunakan angkutan umum, mengurangi waktu tempuh perjalanan menggunakan public transport pada saat peak hour, meningkatkan cakupan layanan angkutan perkotaan, meningkatkan ketersediaan akses pejalan kaki menuju angkutan umum, memperluas layanan feeder yang terintegrasi dengan simpul utama, meningkatkan fasilitas park and ride, serta mempermudah perpindahan antar moda. Sebagai penopang kebijakan pembangunan transportasi di Jabodetabek, Rencana Induk ini berlandaskan pada peningkatan keselamatan dan keamanan, pengembangan jaringan prasarana, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan berbasis jalan dan rel, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang terintegrasi, peningkatan kinerja lalu lintas, pengembangan sistem pendanaan, pengembangan keterpaduan transportasi perkotaan dan tata ruang, serta pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang ramah lingkungan. Implementasi rancangan peraturan ini akan dilakukan secara bertahap, mulai dari tahun 2018 sampai dengan 2029, sebagai landasan bagi pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah dalam merencanakan, mengelola, dan mengembangkan transportasi yang terintegrasi di wilayah Jabodetabek. Diharapkan melalui Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan dapat selaras dan sejalan antar satu wilayah dengan wilayah lainnya, serta efektif dan efisien sehingga pada akhirnya dapat ikut bersama mendukung pembangunan nasional.
Let's start the webinar for today. Good morning and evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar, The Vision Zero Initiative, Concept and Implementation by Washington, D.C. Government. Before we begin, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Hananto Prakoso, Transportation Attaché at the Embassy of Indonesia in Washington, D.C. And it is my honor to be your moderator for today's webinar. One of the primary reasons of unnatural deaths all over the world is traffic accident. The Global Status Report on Road Safety 2018, launched by WHO, spotlight that every year there are around 1.35 million people killed on the world's road, whilst almost 3,700 people are killed in crashes involving automobiles, buses, motorbikes, bicycle, lorries, or pedestrians around the world daily. The lack of appropriate and integrated measures worsen the safety issue in emerging countries, one of which is in Indonesia. The Indonesian Police Traffic Corps recorded that there were 100,028 traffic accidents throughout 2020 in Indonesia. With the high number of accidents and fatalities, it is undoubtedly that Indonesian cities requires a set of innovative policies to reduce the numbers. Washington, D.C. is one of the cities that has a policy to reduce the number of accidents and fatalities through the Vision Zero initiative. From the available statistics, the initiative has proven to have a tremendous impact on improving safety in Washington, D.C. This is a good opportunity for us to learn and understand how Washington, D.C. government initiate and implement Vision Zero policy to realize zero fatalities by 2024. This webinar is organized by Greater Jakarta Transportation Authority, Ministry of Transportation Indonesia, and attended by Ministry of Transportation officials, as well as other related stakeholders in Indonesia. And now, we would like to welcome the Honorable Secretary of the District of Columbia, Secretary Kimberly Bessette. Good morning, Secretary Bessette. Thank you for your coming. And I would like to welcome the Director of Traffic Management, Greater Jakarta Transportation Authority, Ministry of Transportation of Indonesia, Mr. Sigit Irfansyah. Good evening, Pak Sigit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Bassett, Secretary of State for Washington, D.C. It's an honor to be here with such a distinguished group of Indonesian government officials as we work together to exchange best practices and ideas on keeping our citizens safe on the streets. I'd like to thank Director of our Vision Zero program, Linda Bailey from our Department of Transportation, for her time today, making Vision Zero a national example of safety on our streets. When Mayor Bowser launched this initiative 4 years ago, she was very committed to offering safe, accessible, and sustainable transportation. And we are so grateful here in Washington, D.C. for her leadership. I'd also want to thank the Embassy of Indonesia and Mr. Hananto Prakoso for all of his work in helping organize this program for which we are here today. So on behalf of the 700 and 2,000 district residents of the District of Columbia. I look forward to welcome you, and I also look forward to future exchanges. In Washington, D.C., we have a saying, "We are D.C." And when you're visiting D.C. and you're a part of D.C. government, we are D.C. Thank you all, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much, Secretary Bessette, for the excellent opening remark and brilliant insight about the Vision Zero initiative. Secretary Kimberly Bessette was appointed to serve as the Secretary of the District of Columbia by Mayor Muriel Bowser on December 11, 2018. In her role as the Secretary, she is the custodian of the seal of the District of Columbia and manages the city ceremonial services, government document publishing and issuances, notary commissions and authentications, international and diplomatic activities, and public record and archive maintenance. Ms. Bessette was the former director of the Mayor's Office on Women's Policy and Initiative during Mayor Muriel Bowser's first term. In this role, she served as the Bowser Administration Chief Advocate, representing the needs and interests of women in Washington, D.C. As a director, Ms. Bessette collaborated with local and national nonprofit organizations and public agencies to engage and increase district residents' program participation. Ms. Bessette also advised Mayor Muriel Bowser on political position and initiative, while also serving as her traveling chief of staff. Secretary Bessette, thank you for your opening remark. Please give virtual applause to Secretary Kimberly Bessette. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And the second opening remark will be delivered by our beloved Director of Traffic Management, Greater Jakarta Transportation Authority, Mr. Sigit Irfansyah. Good evening once again, Pak Sigit. Mr. Sigit, screen is yours.
Thank you, Pak Hananto. Good morning in Washington Times. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Om Swastiastu. Her Excellency Secretary of District of Columbia, Ms. Kimberly Bessette. Her Excellency Director of Vision Zero, District Department of Transportation, Ms. Linda Bailey. Her Excellency President of Indonesia Road Safety Partnership, Ms. Eli Adriani Sinaga. His Excellency Senior Investigator, Indonesian National Transportation Committee, Mr. Wildan. His Excellency the Secretary and the Director in the Greater Jakarta Transport Authority. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good evening in Jakarta time and good morning for my colleagues in DC. On behalf of the Greater Jakarta Transportation Authority, Ministry of Transportation of Republik Indonesia, it is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you all of this knowledge sharing session on the topic of Vision Zero initiative. Thank you for being in the virtual events. In this event, our primary agenda is sharing knowledge on the safety initiative from the Washington, D.C. government, namely Vision Zero initiative. Safety is fundamental principle in the transportation management and has always been a government main concern in Indonesia. It's reflected the formulation of the key information indicator of the Ministry of Transportation of the Republic Indonesia, where safety is one of the indicator. Moreover, Indonesia has also developed National Road Safety Plan to 2011-2035 with the target in reducing 80% of accident by the year 2035. The government, through the Ministry of Transportation, is collaboration with the Indonesian National Police, always motivate and socialize the importance of being the regulation and practicing safety driving culture. The Ministry of Transportation itself is spirit safe driving by implementing 4A, namely is alertness, awareness, attitude, and anticipations. In addition, The Ministry of Transportation is also campaign for safety by limiting the maximum speed to 30 km/h in residential area, school, and activity center. It is hoped that with this effort, the target of zero fatality accident will be achieved. Our honorable guests, according to the WHO Global Status Report on Road Safety 2008, road traffic accident account for staggering by 135 million deaths per year globally. This already unacceptably a number the expected increase by 2 million by 2030, which would make traffic-related crash in the fifth leading cause of death globally. Meanwhile, Indonesia, the latest data reveal there were more than 100,000 traffic accidents throughout 2020, with the considerably high fatality rates. Although this number decreased by 14% compared to the number the preceding years. Yet this data show us the safety driving is still relatively low. The traffic accident is caused by a mixed factor relating to the system component, which include road, environment, vehicle, and road user, as well as how they interact. For the operation of the type of transportation, whether public and private, safety should become top priority. Ladies and gentlemen, although Indonesia has a number of safety law in place for the transportation sector, there are still a significant number of accidents. Indonesia, without a doubt, require a set and proper strategies to reduce the vehicle crash and the fatality rates. In this regard, Indonesia government, here represented the Ministry of Transportation, would like to learn from America, particularly the District of the Columbia governments, which has effectively lowering the number of accidents as well as the number death by enforcing the Vision Zero initiative. Based on the current data, the initiative has had significant impact on increasing safety in Washington, D.C. I do really hope that this knowledge sharing agenda will add some insight and understanding of what the appropriate strategy toward zero accident is and how to implement it successfully, thus we can save many lives. I am firmly convinced that your active participation and valuable contribution will provide substantial outcome toward our effort in improving the transportation safety in Indonesia. Thank you for bringing your energy, knowledge, and expertise. I wish you all fruitful decision. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sigit, for the opening remark. Please give virtual applause to Mr. Sigit, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Sigit, thank you very much. We would like to express gratitude for all to attend our webinar. We hope everyone in a good health, and I think we should be proud of this webinar because right now this webinar is attended by close to 350 participants. Bravo for all. Okay, now it is the time to photo opportunity to our all panelists, speakers, and participants. Please look into your camera so that we can imagery this moment, and please make sure that your camera is turning on. Ready? Please take a picture in 3, 2, 1, and smile. One more. Please take a picture in 3, 2, 1, and smile. Okay, thank you very much to our speakers and participants. I know that we are looking forward to our next part of our webinar, the presentation from extraordinary speaker from District Department of Transportation. She will provide us with insight about the Vision Zero initiative in Washington, D.C. Right after, of course, we will have Q&A session before the end of our webinar. To ask question, please put your question to the Q&A box with the particular format. Type your name, space, and question. So without further ado, on behalf of the organizing committee, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our knowledge sharing webinar, a dedication from the Ministry of Transportation of the Republic of Indonesia. The presentation will be given by Ms. Linda Bailey, Linda Bailey is the Vision Zero Director for the Washington, D.C. Department of Transportation or District Department of Transportation. She joined DDOT in March 2019 from the National Association of City Transportation Officials, where she served as Executive Director since 2014. In her role, Ms. Bailey worked with a network of transportation officials from large US cities to develop strong national policies based on the best practices in various aspects of transportation policy, including street design, bicycle infrastructure design, public space design, transit supportive street design, and also green stormwater design for city street. Ms. Bailey holds a Bachelor of Art and a Master of Urban Planning from the University of Michigan. She is a member on the Committee on Large Cities for the Transportation Research Board and a former board member of the Washington Area Bicyclists Association. Okay, once again, good morning, Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bailey, screen is yours.
Morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Percoso and everyone else. It's a real honor to be here today, giving you some thoughts on what we're doing here on Vision Zero in Washington, D.C. I'm going to try and start my slides. I think that should be showing now. Can you all see that?
Yes, I can see it.
Great, thank you,
Yes,
thank you,
okay.
okay, great, okay. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a very different time in Indonesia. Right here it's morning, we have bright sunlight coming in the window, and happy to be here today speaking to you about our Vision Zero program in DC. What is Vision Zero? Roadway safety has been around for a while, since, maybe since forever, but especially since the automobile era. Vision Zero is really a rethinking of how we do roadway safety. Our goal under Vision Zero is to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries on city streets with a real urgency. There's a lot of different pieces to that work, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. This is following on the model that came from Sweden. Sweden and Norway are some of the most successful Vision Zero jurisdictions in the world. And a lot of major cities across the US have now adopted it. In the US, we are still striving to achieve Vision Zero, but we still feel having that goal is very important for our safety program. So Vision Zero is a little different than a traditional approach, and I'll kind of walk through these as well. But it's really taking a different stance on traffic safety as well as different tools. Every year, we are putting all of our efforts towards zero deaths. We're working aggressively, going beyond kind of a minimum standard as much as possible. We collect data, we engineer our streets and intersections. We're taking all the different tools we can take. And overall, we're using what's called a safe systems approach. There are many pieces to the safe systems approach. As you can see, our agency, my agency, the Department of Transportation, focuses on safe roads because we are the roadway construction agency. We have some role on other things. We rely on our partners for things like post-crash care in the hospital. Those are also very important pieces. They're not under DC DDOT control. So I'm going to zero in on the Department of Transportation role. So getting back to what are those core principles and how do we explain them? One is that we say that death and serious injuries are unacceptable. And we prioritize those types of crashes that are more severe. We accept that humans make mistakes and that can lead to a crash. So we're trying to design and operate a system that accommodates human mistakes without leading to death or serious injury. And again, we look at humans as vulnerable. We are vulnerable to physical limits for tolerating crash forces. And we need to think about our system in a human-centric way to preserve that human life. And one way to think about safe systems is that there's going to be multiple layers, and we want it, each one can be like Swiss cheese if there's a gap in that layer. We need each one to be as closed as possible. Otherwise, you end up with a fatality that makes it through all the layers. Responsibility is shared. This is a traditional idea about everyone on the roadway. We're enlarging that to include government at all levels. We want to be proactive in our safety work, and it's important to think about things with redundancy because all those different layers, like I said, need to account for one another's weaknesses, basically. So we need all the layers to be redundant as much as possible. Another key part of thinking about safety under Vision Zero is thinking about speed as a specific factor. In a city environment, we have to, where people may be walking, rolling, or riding along the roadway, we need to keep in mind that speed above a certain level is not tolerable for the human body. So speed's a critical factor that we think about. As much as possible, we want streets to be self-enforcing. We say, the laws of physics are more powerful than the laws of humans. And finally, that saving lives isn't expensive. We should think about that as high value that goes beyond a cost-benefit analysis. Now, a major issue in road safety is behavior. Behavior is a key factor in every crash, but usually every crash has multiple factors. So what we say is behavior is not the only reason. And again, getting back to the laws of physics are more powerful than the laws of humans. How do we take into account that humans are not perfect and will make poor decisions and mistakes? And so how do we account for that in the way we design our systems? Now, changing behavior can take generations, and it has to be a coordinated effort by many players. And in the United States, one model for this is anti-smoking laws have really changed how much people smoke cigarettes in the US, but it took easily a generation or more for that to happen. So we're not dismissing behavior, but we're saying, like, yes, we'll continue to work on behavior. We also have to think about these other slices of protections. And now I'm going to get into everything that we are doing. The critical thing is to build Vision Zero principles into everything we do. That gets to the accountability and responsibility. We use data to identify locations with the most injuries and fatalities to prioritize to improve. And we look at projects on those highest priority intersections and streets, especially and differently. We work locally and regionally to promote safe travel behaviors. In Washington, D.C., we have many abutting jurisdictions very close by, many drivers coming from other jurisdictions. We need to work regionally. And finally, part of our work in DC on Vision Zero is trying to address historic inequities that relate to disinvestments in some parts of our region and our city in terms of roadway safety. Right now, this is a map of multiple years of fatalities in the district. We are averaging a little less than 5 fatalities per 100,000 population over the last several years. We're doing about twice as well, I guess you could say, as the US. US overall average is 11 traffic fatalities per 100,000. That's pre-COVID numbers, but so we're already better by a lot than most of the average US. And we've been a leader for some time now on safety treatments, especially systemic ones, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. One thing I think that's important to know for transportation professionals is how these crashes are occurring, where they're occurring most likely. Now, every place is different, but the pattern in the DC is similar to the US, which is the highest risk of death and injury is on our arterial streets, our major streets. In the district, that means 66% of all fatalities and injuries are on our arterial streets. As compared to our local streets, our neighborhood streets, only 16% are happening on those streets. And the proportion that those make up of our network are like opposite. So arterials are a small proportion of the network, a large proportion of crashes, and same thing opposite for locals. They're a large proportion of our network, a small proportion of our injuries and fatalities. If you worked in this field, you know most crashes occur at intersections. That's where we're thinking about conflict mitigation, maximizing that, especially on arterials. Multi-lane streets and crosswalks are also more dangerous. And one of the things that we are pushing on all of our DDOT projects, whether it's coming from a safety project or a drainage project, that we try to reduce exposure to crashes for everyone on the street and reduce and manage vehicle speeds as much as possible. And again, because we are already way ahead of the US average, we need to strive for more than US standards when we do design. I'm going to talk very briefly about this. This is something that we have a very strong post-crash system. Our partner in that is our police department. They actually respond to crashes and create the reports. So I'm just going to mention that this is a major part of understanding where crashes are happening and what happened in that crash. And that is an important part. Without that information, we wouldn't be able to use crashes to understand where things are happening. That's a kind of a separate discussion, but I just wanted to share this with you and how we treat our crashes. So I'm going to kind of take a side note now and talk about the COVID era. In the United States, our traffic levels went down a lot under COVID, different levels at different points in time, but certainly by double digits. And similarly, injury crashes went down by 31% since this is even including part of 2020 pre-COVID. So for those 2 years, injury crashes were down by 31% relative to the previous 3 years. Even more for people walking, pedestrians, and people cycling, cyclists. And this is a graph that kind of shows that pattern over time. These are reported injuries and fatalities. Mostly injuries. I'll talk about fatalities in a moment. Now, fatalities, unfortunately, in the COVID era in the district did tick up. It's not consistent across modes, but it is overall clear. Pre-COVID, we were averaging around 31 fatalities the last 3 years. And during COVID, those numbers went up, particularly among motorcyclists. And I know that motorized two-wheelers are a major issue in Jakarta. I think I understood from some of the presentations that were running at the beginning. So I think that might be an issue for you as well. Generally speaking, we attribute this to reduction in congestion, giving more opportunities to speed. Generally more speeding and other aggressive driving also in the late night hours. And mode shift away from transit because of fear of contagion, people not taking the bus and the train as much. Those are some of our safest modes. Now I'm going to shift gears back to talking about how we do things and what we do. The community-centered project development process is very important in the United States and in our district. We're working with people in our community to identify where we need to be doing more safety work. We do a lot of engagement during project development so that neighbors understand and are interested and bought into the safety projects we're doing. When we do have a tragedy, this shown here is a site of a fatality. We are trying to respond with a design that really changes the dynamics that led to that fatality. In this case, you can see a scene from the crash right there. Within about 4 months of this fatal crash that killed a young man who was crossing a minor arterial on foot, who was struck by a driver coming southbound on the street, we were able to install median refuge islands, pedestrian flashers to elevate the visibility of the crosswalk and people crossing, as well as narrowing the roadway with posts, a quick build intervention. And overall, we saw an increase in yielding behavior by drivers. Drivers are required to yield to people walking across this intersection in the district. And prior to doing this intervention, the yielding behavior was around 60%. 60% of drivers yielded. And after the intervention, 90% of drivers yielded. So we got a good response just on that. Another major issue for fatalities is some of our large arterials. You can see here Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast, close to the Potomac River. We had a fatal crash at this location in 2020. And in this case, this is a very wide roadway with a lot of commuter travel on it. We focus on our speed camera program, which we call this DC Street Safe, where we have 77 speed cameras on the street, red light cameras, oversize, and stop sign cameras. In that case, we put in a speed camera to try and manage speeds on that large roadway in the short term. Just to talk a little bit more about our automated enforcement program, this is something we've seen really successful for lowering the speeds of drivers going by the location of the camera. Typically, this takes to maximize somewhere around a year. You can see that before, when we first installed these street cameras, violation rates were around 1.5% or even 2%, above 2%. And then over the course of about a year and a half, I think in this case, got down to close to 0.5%, which would be 1 in 200 drivers. So it's a very successful reduction in speeding. And one of the interesting things we found is that in particular, this is on an expressway location. Before enforcement, the 99th percentile, so 1 in 100 drivers, were going 72 miles per hour. This is signed for 50 miles an hour. So they're going over 20 miles an hour over the speed limit. And that speed was reduced by 11 miles an hour, which especially for those top level speeders is very significant, as they're more likely to be involved in more serious crashes. In our neighborhood streets in DC in 2020, we lowered our speed limit to 20 miles per hour, which is similar to 30 kilometers per hour. And that is an important measure for our local streets. As I said, we have fewer crashes on those streets, but we want people to be extra careful because that's also where we have more children playing, people doing other things in the roadway, getting in and out of cars. In the last couple of years, we've had several fatalities of people next to their car or behind their car. So it's still a serious risk area that we want to look at. And we were able to scale this up. So some of our interventions, we go into a specific site. Some things we're doing at scale. This is one we were trying to do at scale. So every local street becomes 20 miles an hour. Another program we've had to reduce conflicts for pedestrians, for people walking in the crosswalk, is to prohibit more right turns on red at signals. I'm not aware of the Indonesian policy on this. In the US, most jurisdictions permit drivers to turn right on red. That can lead to confusion and sometimes collisions or near misses in the crosswalk, which can be very stressful for people trying to walk across. Another new thing that we've been doing the last several years is what we call left turn hardening or left turn traffic calming. The goal with this is to put in, you can see here, it kind of looks like an oval. It's actually a domed speed hump that's kind of in the middle. And that encourages drivers to make more of a right turn around the corner, as opposed to sweeping the crosswalk. We recently had 2 children and their father struck on the way to school in a crosswalk here, where the driver reportedly swept the crosswalk and actually struck the children and their father on this side of the crosswalk. So by putting in this traffic calming, this left turn hardening, we're hoping that drivers will make a right turn, which gives them also a much better view on the crosswalk as they approach it. Another really important intervention we've done at scale through our signal retiming program is to implement leading pedestrian intervals. We have spread this across the city and many intersections. Leading pedestrian interval gives people walking a head start on the green, and they get a walk signal typically 3 to 7 seconds before the signal turns green. So they get to establish themselves in the crosswalk before people are making the turn. And finally, geometric redesign is a major issue for us to try and provide safer places for people to walk and also to bicycle, as you can see in this image. This image is a conceptual drawing for Florida Avenue Northeast, which is a major arterial in the district. And you probably, unless you know it, you wouldn't know, but there's 2 things going on here. One is that sidewalk is currently substandard and width and inaccessible for people in wheelchairs. And there's a bicycle lane that is not as nice as this one. So the bicycle lane will be moved out, the sidewalk will be expanded as part of a redesign of a major arterial. And that will improve safety significantly for people both walking and cycling, as well as managing speeds on a short section of this roadway that was kind of expanded a lot, probably 50 years ago, and has had several fatalities, unfortunately. Another way that we do our geometric redesign is to use what we call sometimes tactical urbanism or quick build methods. So you can see here, we haven't re-engineered the surface of the roadway at all. There's no change in curb line or anything. We're using posts, paint, and planters. This is important because I assume many of the people on this call are engineers, and when we want to do engineering, we want to do it right, we want to take our time. However, when we have a safety critical improvement, we want to make it quickly. So this is kind of filling in the gap there to be able to do something with quick build methods. Finally, we're trying to install these across the district for different purposes. Here you see a combination of an installation of a bicycle facility, as well as kind of a curb bump out to shrink the turn radius and manage turning speeds across the crosswalk especially. And finally, micromobility corrals. I think this is a really good thing to think about. I don't know the status of scooters in Indonesia. We have a lot of, we have a very big e-scooter program, which is very popular here in the district. And we want to make sure we have a safe place for those to park where they won't block sidewalks. And so this is kind of a crossover project we did. We also have issues with people parking right up to the corner, which blocks visibility for drivers approaching the intersection. So this both daylights that intersection for drivers and provides a parking area for micromobility for scooters, our e-scooter fleets. Another at-scale thing that we have done is move from our more traditional ladder crosswalks, which is basically 2 lines, to this full high visibility crosswalk style, which was a big improvement for visibility of those crosswalks. Here we have a pedestrian scramble. This is one of our interventions in a location where we've had a lot of pedestrian and cyclist injuries in the past. And this has improved safety by providing more walk time for people walking and discouraging or trying to eliminate some of those conflicts when drivers turn through crosswalks. You see that? And then finally, we have our we have some signal programs that we've worked on. So for a full color signal, red, yellow, green, we maintain the METCD standards. For these signals, these are just flashers basically. They can be off cycle. This is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And then the hawk signal is kind of a half signal for people that can activate it with a button. And we have a large projector bike lane and two-way cycle track program also. There's one last picture of an intersection that was reconstructed to provide better guidance to drivers, spaces for people to ride bikes, as well as wider crosswalks as part of the redesign program. With that, I will close out my program, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm happy to have a discussion. I know we're close to time. I'm a little bit late.
Thank you very much, and please give virtual applause to Ms. Belly. Thank you for your excellent presentation. From Ms. Belly's presentation, we knew that there is a long story and effort to implement Vision Zero in Washington, D.C. Vision Zero marks a new approach to Washington, D.C. transportation system and a renewed sense of urgency within the city. By the year 2024, Vision Zero will eliminate all transportation-related fatalities and serious injuries on city streets. Among other U.S. cities, Washington, D.C. is a leader on safety treatment. I have found that more than 30 Washington, D.C. government agencies contribute to this initiative, and public engagement is also taking important role to achieve Vision Zero target. I think from Indonesian side, your Vision Zero concept and implementation is a valuable lesson learned, not only for government purpose, but also other transportation stakeholders in Indonesia. Thank you once again, Ms. Belly, for your excellent presentations. After listening to speakers' presentation, now it is the time for panel discussion. We have two Indonesian experts as panelists today. They will give us even more insight from an expert's point of view regarding the Vision Zero initiative. Before we proceed, I want to say hello to our participants. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you will stay until the end of our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Eli Adriani Sinaga. She is now the president of Indonesian Road Safety Partnership. She had a long career in Ministry of Transportation of the Republic of Indonesia and had several important positions. She was the former of the head of Greater Jakarta Transportation Authority. Dr. Eli, please, screen is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Atashe, Pak Hananto. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam and good evening to all of us here in Indonesia, and a very good morning to you in DC. Distinguished Pak Sigit, the Director of Traffic Management BPTJ, Ms. Kimberly Bassett, the Secretary of the District of Columbia, Ms. Linda Belly, Director of Vision Zero District Department of Transportation, Pak Wildan from KNKT, and all webinar participants. My appreciation to BPTJ, who held this event in collaborations with the government of the District of Columbia. Thank you, Ms. Kimberly and Ms. Linda. It was a fantastic presentation for sharing your experiences, action plan to achieve the zero accident target in your city. Excuse me, can I have my slide to be prepared? Yes, thank you. Okay, next one. Next one. Yeah, I think this is a good moment to do this webinar. Due to our government has just issued a presidential regulations on national grand design of road safety. Yeah, just about a month ago. Yeah, so this is a very good moment you are doing this webinar. Indeed, here we learn a lot how city or region does safety management, although it is not in a country context, yeah, but in a city, yeah. But from here, we can learn as a central government how to regulate our city. What should the city do to eliminate or reduce traffic accident? Next one. Yeah, I remember this sentence at your presentation, Linda, and also from your action plan book that I received. No loss of life is acceptable. Yeah, you mentioned that human mistake, it is acceptable, but no loss of life is acceptable. And it mentioned in your policy that by the year 2024, you will do everything in your power to eliminate transportation fatalities and serious injuries. You know, I got goosebumps hearing it. Yeah, a strong commitment and really measurable actions. Vision Zero will eliminate all transportation-related fatalities and serious injuries on the street by the year 2024. The public can immediately assess if in 2024 there are still transport fatalities and serious injuries, then the government is not successful. So this is really a very strong commitment. This is how the state should be. Yeah, I do really love to hear this one. Yeah, we are very strong as the government. Okay, next one. From what was heard from our speaker earlier, Linda, many things we can learn. Here are some attractive action to me. Yeah, there are a lot of attractive action to me, but because they just gave me 8 minutes to give the comments. Yeah, so this is just the very attractive one. The first one, how your government, the city, built a sense of urgency for all the citizens of the city that Vision Zero is indeed mandatory. Working aggressively more than standard. We should learn what's the motivations made this. You should do your actions more than standard. It is, I don't know, yeah, what's the motivation that made you like this? The second one, working together, shared responsibility. It mentions in your action plan, yeah, because I took this from your book. Most importantly, the Vision Zero plan draws upon our greatest asset is you. Yeah. So the zero plan, yeah, it is taken from the society. Yeah, we have seen the hazardous location you have identified. We have heard the dangerous behaviors you have described. Yeah, so this is coming from the communities. Yeah, so facts obtained from people. The action taken by arrange the program which related to 5 E's. Yeah, usually I know 3 E's, but now you are added up equity, encouragement, yeah, beside the 3-1, engineering, education, enforcement, and the most important one is data. Yeah, we have crazy about data here in Indonesia. So such kind of black spot areas, for instance, yeah, we are always debating regarding these black spot areas, yeah, because we have different measurement, yeah, from each institutions. Yeah, by you doing, aside from the data that is routinely collected, I think it is verified with input from the community, so that the improvements that will be done are not misplaced. So we don't spend money for nothing. Yeah, this is very important. Yeah, prioritizing policies and programs in the locations where they can have the greatest impact. So the people should feel the greatest impact by these actions. Yeah. This is one of the efforts that I have been long thought about. Yeah, how can this issue of safety be not only government responsibility, but all stakeholders, all civil society responsibility? We often convey this slogan in various events. Keselamatan adalah tanggung jawab kita bersama. Is it just a slogan? So what does it look like? So the Vision Zero Action Plan here in DC is based on the interagency working groups, public input, local transportation data, and crash statistics, plus national and international best practices. Yeah, I hope you can also learn from Indonesia by having this webinar, Linda. Okay, then, next one. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, still the previous one. Yeah, there's one more that I have to explain. Yeah, previous one. Yes, the transparent and responsive strategies. Establish one public locations or platform for all crash and safety data on the Vision Zero website. Yeah, so this is transparent. Anybody could open this website. Yeah, data will be available in a machine-readable open format. Yeah, of course, in inviting all stakeholders, both government and community, we need to prepare an integration platform of communications. Yeah, this is that this district do. They develop crowdsourced safety map. Yeah, it is really excellent. Yeah, which allow people to geographically identify hazardous locations and describe problematic behaviors. I think currently preparing for an integration platform, it's not an extraordinary job, yeah, but it is really ordinary one. Yeah, we can also learn from our colleagues from DC, right, Linda? That's what friends are for. You should help us, your friend. Okay, then last one, it is enforcement. Surely, it is very important, enforcement. Yeah, it proved that crashes were reduced at locations where photo enforcement was deployed. Yeah, so those are the most attractive one. Yeah, I can take from your slide, Linda, but there are some more, a lot. Yeah, but because of the time, I just mentioned these 4 points. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, lastly for BPTJ, yeah, webinars have been done a lot. Is this just a forum of talking? Certainly not. BPTJ already has RITJ, it is the Jabodetabek Transportation Grand Design, which consists of 9 pillars. Yeah, we can have a look here, Linda, that our first pillar, it is improving the safety and security of urban transportations. But the question now, yeah, I will ask Pak Sigit for this one. Yeah, what is the action plan that has been prepared? Yeah, because for the action plan, at least it should include what activities will be carried out, who did what, when the time of completion of its program, where does the funding source, how is the program monitoring and measuring its achievement, etc., etc. So my recommendations, please consider what we have learned tonight. Yeah, I think Linda, yeah, and Kimberly will be so happy, yeah, if we are working together to share their knowledge to us. Okay, the next one, please. Yeah, this is the one that I told you, the presidential decrees, president regulations that just launched. It is the grand design, yeah, for national plans, yeah. So the 5 pillars, yeah, they are including here, and all the institutions, they have to share for this one, yeah. So yes, I know that this is just issued, but we don't work too late. Yeah, there are many things, yeah, that we should do. Yeah, drafting guidelines for the implementations. Yeah, and then it is national, location. It is also local action plan. Yeah, and regional. Yeah, how do we connect each other? Yeah, from the national to the regional and the local. And then the socializations, I think it is really needed. Yeah, implementation and control. Yeah, we do have here that according to these regulations, yeah, we should provide the local and national action plan. Yeah, this is one of the big job that we should do. Yeah, establish a data center and safety research. I don't think we do have safety research now. Yeah, institutional coordination of road safety, MOT program preparations, and now BPTJ also. What is the formulations of BPTJ task, yeah, from this room? Formulation of Jabodetabek regional task, etc. Yes, it is a big job what our country should do for all over Indonesia. The challenge is SDGs, UN set a target of decrease in death toll due to road transport accident by 2030 up to 50%. Yeah, in 10 years, 2020, 2030. So good luck to you then. That's all my comments. Saving life is not expensive. Safety is proactive. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Eli. Please give virtual applause to Dr. Eli Adriana Sinaga for the useful insight. So the second discussion is Mr. Wildan. He is a senior investigator in Indonesian National Transportation Safety Committee. Mr. Wildan will deliver his review in Bahasa Indonesia. So for the English speaker, you can use Zoom interpretation feature by clicking interpretation at the bottom right, choose English, and click mute original audio. Mr. Wildan, screen is yours.
Baik, terima kasih atas waktunya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi buat sahabat yang di DC dan selamat malam buat sahabat-sahabat yang di Indonesia. Pertama, saya menyampaikan apresiasi yang setinggi-tingginya untuk teman-teman di DC atas pencerahan yang telah diberikan kepada kita semua di Indonesia. Dan juga terima kasih kepada BPTJ yang telah mengajak KNKT pada kesempatan ini. Baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, sahabat semua yang saya hormati dan saya banggakan, perkenankan pada kesempatan ini saya akan menyampaikan beberapa rekomendasi KNKT yang terkait dengan Vision Zero, yang dengan tujuan untuk menekan fatalitas korban, dan beberapa hal telah kami lakukan baik pada jalan maupun kendaraan. Mungkin bisa di-share materi paparan saya. Bisa next slide. Baik, Pertama, kita sampaikan bahwa untuk program Vision Zero, rekomendasi KNKT itu ditujukan pada 2 objektif, yaitu pada pertama di bagian jalan maupun di kendaraannya. Next slide. Bapak Ibu sekalian, Indonesia itu adalah negara dengan banyak jalan menurun. Dan pada jalan menurun ini kita menghadapi sesuatu masalah, yaitu besarnya energi potensial. Dan ini sangat berisiko bagi kendaraan besar, terutama bus dan truk pada saat melalui jalan menurun. Nah, kita selama ini dihantui oleh berbagai macam remblong, dan 80% remblong ini penyebabnya bukan karena malfunction kendaraan, melainkan karena kesalahan prosedur mengemudi pada saat melalui jalan menurun. Kita ambil contoh pada saat di Kota Bumiayu. Dari tahun 2017 sampai tahun 2018 terdapat berbagai macam remblong truk yang masuk Kota Bumiayu. Dalam jangka waktu 1 tahun itu terdapat korban jiwa sebanyak 38 orang. Nah, kami juga mendapatkan masalah bahwa semua jalur penyelamat di Indonesia isinya itu pasir. Sementara Indonesia adalah negara yang banyak musim hujannya. Ketika pasir kena hujan, pasirnya menjadi keras. Pada satu kasus, ketika sebuah truk masuk ke jalur penyelamat, hal itu justru meningkatkan fatalitas. Semua awak kendaraan pada truk tersebut meninggal dunia. Atas dasar tersebut, kemudian KNKT mendesain ulang jalur penyelamat. Kita rubah, yang dari pasir berubah, kita ganti dengan batuan gravel. Dan ternyata ini efektif. Dari tahun 2018 sampai tahun 2021, terdapat lebih dari 150 truk yang masuk dalam jalur penyelamat di Kota Bumiayu. Kita bisa bayangkan, seandainya truk itu masuk Kota Bumiayu, berapa jumlah korban yang akan ditimbulkan. Dan alhamdulillah, semua truk yang masuk jalur penyelamat yang didesain oleh kami, fatalitasnya turun 100%. Kendaraannya tidak rusak, bahkan pengguna atau awaknya tidak mengalami luka sedikit pun. Nah, ini salah satu daripada program Vision Zero di jalan yang telah kami kembangkan. Next. Kemudian kita juga mendapati bahwa pada salah satu masalah di jalan tol kita adalah pada pagar pengaman jalan. Desain pagar pengaman jalan kita, terminal N-nya atau ujungnya itu berbentuk sirip ikan dan runcing. Ketika kendaraan menabrak pagar pengaman jalan tersebut, maka beberapa kasus kendaraan itu malah masuk ke dalam bagian dari pagar pengaman jalan. Dan ini meningkatkan fatalitas penumpang yang ada di dalamnya. Atas hal tersebut kemudian KNKT mendesain pada ujung pagar pengaman jalan atau terminal N, kita desain namanya peredam tumbuk atau crash cushion. Kita pasang pada jalan tol Pemalang sampai dengan Ngawi. Dan alhamdulillah dari beberapa kejadian, ada 5 kejadian, peredam tumbuk itu ditabrak oleh kendaraan dan semuanya selamat. Penurunan fatalitasnya 100%, dan ini sangat memuaskan dan membahagiakan kami bahwa dengan desain tersebut, maka fatalitas pada saat terjadi tabrakan pada pagar pengaman jalan itu bisa ditekan sampai 100%. Next slide. Selanjutnya kami memperoleh data bahwa pada tahun 2019 banyak kendaraan di jalan tol yang keluar dari jalurnya dan akhirnya menabrak tiang tengah jembatan maupun bertabrakan dengan lalu lintas di depannya. Kami melihat bahwa jalan tol Cipali ini memiliki median yang cukup lebar, sehingga kami mendesain untuk pembatasnya tidak menggunakan dengan guardrail ataupun menggunakan MCB, tapi kita menggunakan wire rope, yaitu dengan cara yang memiliki cara kerja menangkap roda dan sehingga dia tidak akan masuk ke jalur lawan ataupun menabrak tiang tengah jembatan. Dan alhamdulillah lebih dari 20 kendaraan bus dan truk yang keluar dari lajur lalu lintas, semuanya selamat. Tidak ada korban fatal maupun luka akibat keluar dari jalur lalu lintas karena rodanya tertangkap oleh wire rope. Artinya kita bisa menurunkan fatalitas korban hingga 100% dengan program wire rope ini. Next slide. Kemudian kita mendapatkan suatu masalah ketika tol Cipali dan tol-tol lainnya dikembangkan di Indonesia. Pengemudi di Indonesia itu mengalami euforia. Mereka memacu kendaraannya dengan setinggi-tingginya. Sementara kendaraan barang, mereka hanya mampu berjalan dengan kecepatan maksimal 40 km per jam. Ada gap kecepatan yang sangat besar. KNKT mencatat gap tersebut mencapai lebih dari 100 km per jam. Ini menjelaskan pada tahun 2019 terjadi tabrak depan belakang di tol Cipali dengan rata-rata sebanyak 36 kali dalam 1 bulan. Artinya setiap hari terjadi tabrak depan belakang dengan fatalitas 97%. Artinya bahwa setiap tabrak depan belakang hampir dapat dipastikan korbannya fatal karena mobil kecil langsung masuk ke dalam kolong kendaraan truk. Atas dasar tersebut, kemudian kita mendesain apa yang disebut dengan rear underrun protection atau bumper belakang. Truk kita pasang bumper sehingga pada saat ditabrak, maka kendaraan tidak akan masuk ke kolongnya. Dan ini terbukti efektif karena beberapa kecelakaan tabrak depan belakang yang menabrak RUP ini, fatalitasnya menurun sampai 100%. Tidak ada penumpang atau awak kendaraan yang menabrak ini yang fatal. Hanya mendapat luka-luka ringan biasa saja. Nah, ini beberapa contoh bahwa kita mencoba mengembangkan bahwa untuk beberapa fatalitas ini ada beberapa pendekatan engineering yang harus kita kembangkan baik di kendaraan maupun di jalan. Mungkin itu adalah beberapa contoh atau yang bisa kami kembangkan pada program Vision Zero atau Passive Safety di Indonesia. Sekalipun masih banyak juga beberapa rekomendasi KNKT yang terkait dengan Passive Safety ini. Namun dalam kesempatan ini kami tidak bisa menyampaikan lebih banyak lagi. Demikian mungkin Pak Hananto yang bisa kami sampaikan dan teman-teman sekalian. Mudah-mudahan ini mendapat memberikan gambaran bagaimana program Vision Zero yang sedang dikembangkan di Indonesia, khususnya oleh KNKT melalui beberapa rekomendasi atas beberapa terjadinya kecelakaan di Indonesia. Demikian, terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam hormat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wildan, for your excellent review. Please give virtual applause to Mr. Wildan from KNKT. We have a lot of questions from our participants in this webinar. Unfortunately, due to the time constraint, this will be the end of our webinar sessions. We apologize for questions that are not read and answered by our expert, but we will send the answer through your email. Ms. Bailey, is there any statement before we close the webinar?
I want to thank everyone for participating today and wish you all the best for your efforts to improve safety in your community.
Thank you. Okay, the next session is the certificate. We humbly present the certificate to our speakers. Of course, right now we will present it virtually to Ms. Bailey, Dr. Eli Adriani Sinaga, and Mr. Wildan. Thank you for your time and your valuable lesson learned for Indonesian stakeholders. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our webinar, Knowledge Sharing on the Vision Zero Initiative by Washington DC Government. Ms. Bailey, Secretary Kimberly Bassett, thank you very much for your kind assistance. We really appreciate your knowledge sharing on the Vision Zero Initiative in Washington DC. We hope that you are still available to assist us, Indonesian government and other stakeholders in the future, notably for enhancing transportation safety in Indonesia. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to express gratitude to our speaker for today and also for all our participants. Thank you. See you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless us all. Let's give applause to all of us. Thank you. And now you may leave the meeting. Thank you.
Terciptanya sistem transportasi perkotaan berbasis angkutan umum massal yang terintegrasi menjadi salah satu strategi utama meretas tantangan transportasi di Jabodetabek saat ini, yaitu tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi, baik motor maupun mobil. Integrasi layanan transportasi yang efektif, efisien, aman, dan nyaman, serta terjangkau oleh masyarakat diharapkan mampu membuat pergerakan orang yang menggunakan angkutan umum massal di Jabodetabek mencapai 60% di akhir 2029, sesuai target Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek (RITJ). Saat ini berbagai implementasi kebijakan untuk menurunkan tingginya penggunaan kendaraan pribadi sudah, sedang, dan akan terus dilakukan. Salah satunya mendorong masyarakat untuk berpindah dari kendaraan bermotor pribadi ke angkutan umum massal. Namun proses penggunaan angkutan umum massal harus dilihat secara utuh. Tidak hanya sekedar memanfaatkan KRL, MRT, LRT, atau BRT, tetapi juga pemanfaatan non-motorized transportation di dalamnya. Ajakan pemanfaatan NMT seperti bersepeda dan berjalan kaki sebagai bagian dalam pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal serta alat bertransportasi pada jarak-jarak yang masih terjangkau terus dilakukan oleh Badan Pengelola Transportasi Jabodetabek (BPTJ) Kementerian Perhubungan. NMT pada pemanfaatan angkutan umum massal dapat dilakukan baik pada tahapan first mile, yaitu dari titik awal berangkat menuju angkutan umum massal, atau last mile, yaitu perpindahan dari angkutan umum massal menuju titik terakhir tujuan dengan berjalan kaki atau bersepeda. Artinya, berjalan kaki dan bersepeda adalah bagian yang tak terpisahkan dari penggunaan angkutan umum massal, baik berbasis jalan maupun rel.
Tumbuhnya Jakarta, Bogor, Depok, Tangerang, dan Bekasi sebagai wilayah aglomerasi menciptakan permasalahan yang kompleks dalam terminologi demografi. Tidak hanya ketersediaan lahan yang belum mampu mengimbangi jumlah kaum urban di Jakarta sebagai kota inti, namun juga memicu permasalahan lain yang pelik di bidang sosial, ekonomi, dan tentunya transportasi. Data mencatat, jumlah kendaraan pribadi lebih mendominasi dibandingkan penyediaan angkutan massalnya. 75%-nya dikuasai sepeda motor, 23% lainnya kendaraan roda 4, dan 2% sisanya adalah angkutan umum. Di sisi lain, belum primanya layanan angkutan umum, kurangnya transportasi publik, buruknya kualitas infrastruktur, dan tidak terintegrasinya transportasi massal antar wilayah menghadirkan permasalahan baru bagi perkembangan Jabodetabek. Menjawab tantangan tersebut, BPTJ berupaya meningkatkan layanan, konektivitas dan mobilitas transportasi dengan menyusun Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek yang telah disahkan melalui Peraturan Presiden Nomor 58 Tahun 2018. Dengan visi mewujudkan pembangunan, pengembangan, dan pengoperasian transportasi yang terintegrasi di Jabodetabek, diharapkan dapat meningkatkan layanan transportasi yang tertib, lancar, efektif, efisien, aman, selamat, nyaman, dan terjangkau tanpa dibatasi oleh wilayah administratif. Selaras dengan hal tersebut, penyelenggaraan dan pengelolaan transportasi Jabodetabek dicapai melalui pembangunan dan pengembangan sistem jaringan prasarana dan jaringan layanan baik intra maupun antar moda, pembangunan dan pengembangan transportasi perkotaan antar wilayah, pengoperasian transportasi perkotaan, dan pengintegrasian pembiayaan. Dengan visi dan misi tersebut, diharapkan penyelenggaraan transportasi perkotaan mampu menggerakkan orang untuk menggunakan angkutan umum, mengurangi waktu tempuh perjalanan menggunakan public transport pada saat peak hour, meningkatkan cakupan layanan angkutan perkotaan, meningkatkan ketersediaan akses pejalan kaki menuju angkutan umum, memperluas layanan feeder yang terintegrasi dengan simpul utama, meningkatkan fasilitas park and ride, serta mempermudah perpindahan antar moda. Sebagai penopang kebijakan pembangunan transportasi di Jabodetabek, rencana induk ini berlandaskan pada peningkatan keselamatan dan keamanan, pengembangan jaringan prasarana, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan berbasis jalan dan rel, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang terintegrasi, peningkatan kinerja lalu lintas, pengembangan sistem pendanaan, pengembangan keterpaduan transportasi perkotaan dan tata ruang, serta pengembangan transportasi perkotaan yang ramah lingkungan. Implementasi rancangan peraturan ini akan dilakukan secara bertahap, mulai dari tahun 2018 sampai dengan 2029, sebagai landasan bagi pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah dalam merencanakan, mengelola, dan mengembangkan transportasi yang terintegrasi di wilayah Jabodetabek. Diharapkan melalui Rencana Induk Transportasi Jabodetabek, pengembangan transportasi perkotaan dapat selaras dan sejalan antar satu wilayah dengan wilayah lainnya, serta efektif dan efisien sehingga pada akhirnya dapat ikut bersama mendukung pembangunan nasional.